Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for all of you who have completed the poll questions. The National Coalition of 100 Black Women Pennsylvania chapter is pleased to present SisterNomics, Estate Planning, Building a Legacy, Part 2. We are pleased to have the Honorable Tracy L. Gordon from the Philadelphia Register of Wills, Ms. Karima Yelverton, Esquire, Assistant Solicitor for the Philadelphia Register of Wills, and Mr. James Leonard, Commissioner of the Philadelphia Department of Records. They will discuss the Tangle Title Crisis and the Probate Deferment Initiative. As you can see from our agenda, we will begin with welcome from our first Vice President, Ms. Nyesha Chapman, followed by the presentations of our panelists. We will leave time for Q&A, and then we will have closing remarks. Before we begin, here are a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please leverage the Q&A function. We ask that you stay engaged during the presentation by adding your commentary via the chat function. And at the conclusion of our mini-series, all attendees will receive an estate planning booklet, compliments of Senator Vincent Hughes, that will be attached to your thank you email that you will receive after the program. And now we will begin with welcome remarks from First Vice President Nyesha Chapman.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and thank you all for joining us tonight. So good evening again. I am Nyesha Chapman, and I am the First Vice President of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Incorporated, Pennsylvania chapter. I bring you greetings on behalf of our President, Latifah K. Fields, and I welcome you to our SisterNomics Estate Planning, Building Your Legacy virtual seminar, Part 2. The mission of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women is to advocate on behalf of Black women and girls in the areas of health, education, economic empowerment, and we are to promote leadership development and gender equity. Across the United States, we are comprised of 2,800 members in over 62 chapters. Through our national and local partnerships, we are proud to be a voice for our communities. For more information about the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Pennsylvania chapter, please visit our website at www.nc100bw-pa.org. The Pennsylvania chapter is one of the largest chapters with over 160 members, where our work focuses primarily in the Philadelphia region. As one of our organization's main initiatives, our SisterNomics platform focuses on creating a path of financial wellness through self-sufficiency. The goal of our SisterNomics programming is to educate Black women and girls on financial literacy, family wealth building, and increasing Black entrepreneurship. Thank you today to our subject matter experts, the Honorable Tracy L. Gordon, Karima Yelverton, Esquire, and Commissioner James Leonard, and to all of you joining in today. We truly hope you leave with additional knowledge on how to build your legacy through estate planning. Remember, tomorrow is not promised, so it is important that you have your financial house in order today. Thank you again for joining, and I will now turn it back over to our Economic Empowerment Committee.
Good evening. My name is Gwen Williams, and I will introduce to you our speakers for this evening. The Honorable Tracy Gordon. Who is Tracy Gordon? Tracy Gordon has served as a pillar of change for the Philadelphian constituents for over 20 years. Her organizing and legislative success as a block captain and committee woman in her modest Southwest Philadelphia neighborhood have propelled her from the ranks of local grassroots leadership and advocacy to an established citywide activist. Gordon's impactful voice in Philadelphia has inspired thousands of community members to emerge as effective leaders in support of her appeals for cleaner neighborhoods, modernized recreation centers, and overall better quality of life for underrepresented communities. Born in Philadelphia during the height of the civil rights movement to a former police officer mother and filmmaker father, community servitude has been instilled in Gordon since childhood. She was first introduced to public service at her high school alma mater, West Catholic, where she excelled in civics. Gordon continued her education at Temple University, graduating with honors in business administration. Her academic success as a collegiate garnered support from her peers and professors on campus that resulted in several scholars awards. Gordon, recognizing the importance of home ownership, utilized these resources and purchased her first property for her family of 4 in the then Irish Catholic neighborhood of Southwest Philadelphia. As the demographics of the neighborhood began to shift, Gordon realized the community outreach from public offices began to decrease. Despite the demographic changes, Gordon demanded that the educational institutions, community safety, and public spaces remained as they had been when she initially purchased her home. Her tireless efforts have resulted in election protection laws, citywide neighborhood cleanups, advocacy for seniors and youth, as well as property value increase and protection. As the Register of Wills, Gordon plans to continue her selfless service to Philadelphia constituents by introducing them to comprehensive probate reform and to increase the diversity within Philadelphia's public offices. I would also introduce to you Karima Yelverson Esquire. She is currently Assistant Solicitor to the Philadelphia Register of Wills, the Honorable Tracy Gordon. Prior to joining the Register of Wills, Karima served as a Philadelphia Assistant Public Defender. Karima received her JD from Widener University, Delaware Law School, and graduated magna cum laude with a BA in Risk Management and Insurance from Temple University, Fox School of Business. I would also introduce to you James P. Leonard Esquire, who is a long resident of Philadelphia, who has spent almost his entire career in public service on behalf of the city of Philadelphia. He has served as the Commissioner of the City of Philadelphia Department of Records since April 2016, when he was appointed by Mayor Jim Kenney. As Commissioner, Jim serves as the Recorder of Deeds for Philadelphia. He manages the city's records management program for all departments. He administers the department's public access to records program, including the city's historical archives, and oversees the city's printing and binding center and official city photographer. Prior to being appointed Commissioner of Records, Jim practiced law in Pennsylvania for approximately 17 years, with a focus on real estate transactional law, municipal pension matters, and the PA right to know law. He spent almost his entire legal career at the City of Philadelphia Law Department. Mr. Leonard received his law degree in 1999 from Villanova University School of Law. He received his Bachelor of Arts degree in history from Villanova University in 1996. And so I present to you now the Honorable Tracy Gordon. Thank you.
So Register Gordon, excuse me, Register Gordon was just on here. I think we may have lost her though.
Okay.
So I'll just start by saying hello and good evening, everyone. Register Gordon should join us shortly. And as an introduction, our office, the Register of Wills office, is a state agency under the First Judicial District, and we are responsible for probate of estates, marriage licenses, and marriage records. We also collect inheritance taxes for the state. We are here today to discuss tangled titles with you and what our office and the Recorder of Deeds can do to assist you with preventing the problem and solving the problem. So Register Gordon, if she was here, she would start by, telling y'all about herself, and she's very wonderful, and she cares very much about our generational wealth. And so I'm going to start by saying there is a problem with tangled titles here in the city. The Register commissioned a study from the Pew Charitable Trust that indicated that there are 10,000 properties in Philadelphia, 10,000 or more properties in Philadelphia that are affected by tangled title. And what that means is that the property is in the name of a deceased person, and that person is not who's living in the house at the current time. That the person who's living in the house may have an interest in the property, whether it was their relatives and they inherited it, or they got it through a rent-to-own type of agreement or something like that. But ultimately, the property is not in their name and they're the resident. So that has been an issue for some years in Philadelphia, and it doesn't get any better because we fail to write wills. And why you should write a will is because it protects your interests in your things. You get to say what happens to your property when you pass away, and not the government. Because if you don't leave a will, the government will say. And there's no such thing as an automatic transfer. When you pass away, even if your grandmom said, this is your property, you say, my grandmom said, this is my house, but grandmom's name is still on the house. So it is not yours, it is grandmom's, and grandmom's not here to sign and say it's anyone else's. So this is why we should write wills. And wills can be done in various ways, and I'll talk to you about that later. But what I would also like to add is it's important that when we have our title to our property, that we make sure we record it with Commissioner Leonard's office. And now I'm gonna let Commissioner Leonard talk a little bit about what his office does.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Karima, for that introduction. And I always say I've had the pleasure over the last, I think, almost 2 years now, maybe. It's been longer than I sometimes realize. Had the pleasure to partner with Register Gordon's office and her team on really trying to figure out innovative ways to address the tangled title crisis in Philadelphia. And nobody's more passionate about talking about that and expressing how dire the situation is and how critical it is to come up with innovative solutions than Register Gordon. So I always say that I sort of am tagging along with her. And it's, like I said, it's always a pleasure to do that. And with Karima many times and the rest of the Register's team. So as the Register always says, there is a tangled title crisis in Philadelphia. The Register worked with, after she got into office, worked with Pew Charitable Trust to commission a study about tangled titles in the city. And that a study like this hasn't been done for, as far as my knowledge, over probably 12 years. I think it was last done by the University of Pennsylvania back in the earlier 2000s. And what Pew discovered, and this was released less than a year ago at this point, was that they estimate there are over 10,000 tangled titles in the city of Philadelphia. And that's most likely, they concede, an undercount based on the methodology they used, which was probably the best methodology you could use to try and capture as many as possible. Most of those, and we'll share, during the course of the conversation, some slides with you that show the locations of them. They're all mapped, and we know that they, that primarily, overwhelmingly, negatively impact communities of color throughout the city, and communities with more limited or more greater needs and are more vulnerable populations. And I should say that the most astonishing thing, the 10,000 number is a big number, but the most astonishing thing to me when I read the study, and that I always talk about, and the Register does too, is that those 10,000 properties represent over $1 billion in generational wealth. That is what folks or economists call dead capital. It's inaccessible because, as Karima explained, the property's not in the true, essentially, owner's name. So let's go back and let me step back and just go over a little bit more about what tangled title is. So in the Recorder of Deeds office, my office, we're responsible for receiving and recording on the public record all deeds and ownership records and mortgages and related records related to your homes and commercial properties as well throughout the city. And that represents probably over almost 600,000 properties throughout the city of Philadelphia. And when most common situation for what we call tangled title, and what Pew focused on rightfully, was the situation where there is a family home, there is no will, and let's say grandma and grandpa pass away at some point, different times, and a relative, be it a child or niece or nephew or grandchildren, continue to live in the house. And that may have been, as Karima suggested, the understanding among all the parties and the deceased, but there was no formal will. So folks go on living in the home, and they may go on paying taxes and the water bills and gas bills and all those sorts of things. And life goes on maybe for years, sometimes decades. And but at heart, they don't legally own the property because their name does not appear on the deed. And the estate, as Karima and the Register will talk about, had never been what they call probated or sort of wrapped up and administered, and property formally transferred by deed to the heirs. At some point, a crisis occurs, and that's generally when a family crisis. And that's generally when Karima and the Register's office or my office or other city agencies who administer grant programs and various programs to support folks in their homes hear from people. And they may need assistance paying the taxes. There may be a sheriff sale. They may be facing a water shutoff, electric shutoff, and all those sorts of things. And what folks are confronted with, maybe years or decades even later, is the fact that without their name on the property, the city and a lot of government agencies who administer programs will not recognize them as the owner, and therefore will not permit them, or not without great difficulty sometimes, permit them to participate in programs they'd otherwise be eligible for, whether it be a tax, low payment or a low income tax payment programs for real estate tax, the basic, what's called the basic system home repair grant, which the Register, I'm sure Karima will talk about too. And they find themselves, when they most need it, confronted with the fact that there was this unresolved, quote, tangled title. And we know from the Pew study that to untangle a title, well, one, we know that it takes legal assistance. It's not something that generally a layperson, unfortunately, is able to navigate, particularly when you're going back years, perhaps with more than one estate of a deceased relative that has to be, quote, probated before the deed can be transferred into the heir's name. And we know that from Pew, they estimate that the average cost, I think, Karima, is almost close to $10,000, $9,000 to $10,000.
For the attorney costs, yes.
Yeah. So, and we know, as the register says, that's not sort of an income, a problem for sort of, quote, lower, the folks who have lower incomes. That's that's a middle class problem. I mean, how many people can afford an unexpected $10,000 legal bill, particular at all, and then add in that it's in the midst of an urgent crisis that might involve sheriff sales or a leaking roof or no heat or water shutoffs. So the register, as I said, when she ran for office, campaigned on addressing this issue. She recognized it as the problem. And once we were provided this incredible data from Pew, it really gave us and the register the evidence that was needed and the data to help drive conversations like this one and other policy conversations with state and local leaders, and even most recently with leaders in other jurisdictions who work on this issue, we found throughout the country. And I'm going to let Karima, because it's the Register of Wills signature program in this area, talk about her sort of initial at this point, because there's many things that she continues to work on in this regard, and we both do together. But to talk about what's called the Probate Deferment Initiative, which is the Register's signature policy program to begin to address this issue.
And I think Register Gordon is joining us right now. I'll give her a second. Because she can talk about all of those things so much more passionately than I can. I mean, I'm very passionate as well. I mean, I'm very committed to it. Register Gordon.
Good evening, everyone. How is everybody? I'm so sorry.
We're good, Register Gordon. You can go ahead.
I don't know, where should I start?
Commissioner Leonard just discussed what his office did.
Okay.
What his office does and how Tangled Titles relate to his office. They read your bio and introduced you, so you can explain more about your initiatives and your mission to protect generational wealth.
Oh, thank you. And first of all, I just wanted to thank everybody at the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. And I like the title, SisterNomics, SisterNomics Estate Planning. And it is so crucial because many of the problems that I'm seeing in our community as far as the protection of our generational wealth are in households that's led by Black women. And so it is so crucial at this time because, unfortunately, because of the lack of education that has gone on in reference to estate planning and the superstitions that have been traditionally passed down on as to why you should make a will or why you should not make a will, has caused a devastating effect on our assets and our generational wealth and how it transfers. And the number one reason why we are having this problem is because we don't understand the rules. And the rules on how to transfer your generational wealth lies in the Pennsylvania Constitution. It's called intestate. And when we don't leave a will, we take away our right to have the sole decision on how your wealth is to be transferred, who is to be transferred, how much is to be transferred, and to close your business, because once you die, you cannot conduct the business of paying your debt and then, making sure that people who rely on you, particularly if it's minor children or disabled children or your children in general, just them not understanding that there is a procedure onto how you are to inherit, or your family is to inherit your property. And as the Register of Wills, I decided, not decided, is one of the things that I campaigned on. Three things is: one, that I would make sure that I educated all the citizens of Philadelphia about the importance of my office and how you all need to know about my office. Our office is a state office and we fall under the 1st Judicial District. And we have been in existence since the 1600s, when the Quakers came over here, white men, and they inherited or obtained land. They put together a constitution that helped them protect their land and helped them with the proper procedure on how to transfer that land to their loved ones. So we have Benjamin Franklin's will, William Penn's will, Grace Kelly, her family's will, probably some of your family's will. We also, the archives, I'm in charge of protecting those archives that date back to the 1600s. In the case of marriage licenses, which I also issue those licenses, we have marriage licenses that goes all the way back to the 1800s. And so my passion is to make sure that everybody understands the importance of my office when somebody dies, because I'm the one that you have to come to validate the will, so you can get the necessary paperwork to take to the banks, to take to the mortgage company, to take to the title company, which is Commissioner Jim Leonard, and which is the reason why him and I partner, because most people think our offices are one and the same, and we're not. My office is the Register of Wills. I'm the office that you come to get your will validated and get the necessary paperwork so you can go retrieve the assets. His office is where you go to take that short certificate to him to say, hey, I'm the heir and I want to transfer the titles and get the paperwork. And so that was one of the things that I said when you all elected me, was I wanted to make sure everybody understood that you don't make wills when you get old. You make a will when you get an asset. And assets are not just houses, cars, coin collections, jewelry, photographs, anything material. Asset is also a minor child. Something happens to you, who is going to take care of your children? You need to put that in writing. That is very important. If you have a disabled child, who is going, and that child needs somebody to take care of them for the rest of their lives, and something happens to you and your husband and your family, you want to make sure you put in writing, who is going to take care of my family? And when you put that will in writing, you need to let someone know where the will is. Oftentimes people come to my office and they say, I know my mother had a will, I know my father had a will, but I can't find it, which means to me, there is no will. And they'll come to my office and say, my mother, everybody knows, said that this house goes to me, or the grandkid believes the house is hers because grandma said it for years or whatever. And there's no will. There's no such thing as a verbal will. It's not an automatic transfer. If you don't have the necessary paperwork to get these assets in your name, you will not be able to legally conduct any business, which means you can't go get home insurance, because once the person died, that home insurance ceased to exist because they're dead. So you're living in a house. We live in row houses. Everybody knows you should have homeowners insurance, because I don't know anybody that if there's a fire in that house or next door, or you get water damage or roof disrepair, I don't know many people that can just go to their bank account and just say, hey, I'll be able to pay this. That's why you buy insurance, for those risks. You can't sell the house. Why? Because the house is still in the dead person's name. So you can't even go to a realtor and say, hey, I would like to liquidate, sell the property. You can't. Why? Because it's still in the dead person name, and you didn't come down to probate the estate, open estate, to get the necessary paperwork from us so you can go and be the person that can make decisions over that property. You can't sell it. You can't pass it down to your kids. You can't get home equity loan. You can't take over the mortgage. You can't even get what they consider basic system repair grants, which is free money that you may be eligible for if you need a new heater, new electrical work. I just spoke to a young man on a program that I host every Thursday called Plan, Prepare, Protect. And he gave a testimonial that was unbelievable. Him and his wife, they had a home, they owned it. They got all new cement work. They got a brand new sewage line put in, all new windows, electrical work, gas, roof, and everything for free, because there are grant monies out there to help homeowners that fall under, I believe the threshold is $50,000 or less. But you are not going to be able to get it because the house is still in the dead person name. And so I started a program to, and Karima, I would love for her to discuss what that program is, so you all can let everybody you know that we are at the Register of Wills are here in partnership with Commissioner Leonard to save people, save families, and keep them in their homes. The second thing I ran on, it was just that, to address the tangle title. I don't untangle them because it's a legal conflict, but I started a program so people can come in and understand what the problem is and give them a goal line to how to solve it. So this is what my office have started to do. And as a result, we help in assistance of 15 tangle titles. That means 15 families now own their homes out of the 10,000 or more. And then I said I would diversify the office, and that's what I've already done. And during a pandemic of untold proportions, our office, both of our offices stayed open as essential office. And I converted everything quickly into like virtually, doing everything virtually. So we're keeping a lot of our virtual programs, but we were able to probate thousands of estates because people were dying, and we issued licenses when no one in the country was issuing licenses, because we live in a Quaker state, which means that there's such thing as a Quaker marriage, which means you didn't have to have an officiant oversee, you can self-marry. And because we are still one of the, I believe, 6 states that still have that law, I was able to marry Philadelphians during a pandemic. So we've done a lot in that office at City Hall, room 180. I have a team that works very hard to get the information out. For the first time in the history of the Register of Wills, I have an outreach unit, which includes a director, and we have, we're also recruiting. We're still looking for a couple more outreach workers, so go on our website. I also started it's called a series called Register Reacts, and it's a series that we take pop culture and movies like Soul Food and Brown Sugar and Game of Thrones, and situations in those series where they talked about estate planning. We took and showed, how Hollywood do it, and then we went to the reality of how the state of Pennsylvania, the right way to do it. So we used pop culture, and we were able to make a large a showing via Facebook. So we are on all social media sites: Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. And so if you put hashtag PHLROW in any of those search engines, you will see the work that our offices have done in partnership with the Recorder of Deeds. So I am so excited about the possibility of changing that narrative about Philadelphia as being the one of the poorest, largest cities. Well, we have an opportunity to assist people that are mostly in Black and brown neighborhoods. We Pew Charitable Trust did a study, and they said that The 10,000 homes that are tangled titles that are still in dead people's names are in Black and brown areas. They are in West Philly. They are in Southwest Philly. They are in North Philly, Lower Northeast, and Germantown. The reason why I was late is because I was going around to the polling places and just talking to some of the workers and, out here in Southwest, and everybody that I talked to either don't have a will or are living in a tangled title. We are in a state of emergency. For the first time in history, our office is open to educating everyone, the churches. My office taught all the elected officials, every council person, every state representative, every state senator, every congressman. Me and Commissioner Jim Leonard went and trained them to understand every part of my office. So when someone comes to their office and they need that assistance, or they think they qualify for the basic system repair grant, they know where to go and we answer their calls. According to a study by Dr. Eugenia South from the University of Penn, crime drops on a block 22% when just one house receives a basic system repair grant. That is the biggest obstacle of being able to get these grants for our people. $50,000 is, yes, look at this map on your right, or the blue. This is where the darker it is, the more tangled titles there are in the city of Philadelphia. See those areas? Southwest Philly, West Philly, North Philly, Germantown, Upper North, and Lower Northeast. Now, if you look at the other map, the red one, that map was released by the controller, Rebecca Reinhardt. That map is where shooting victims by zip code 19143, 19139, 19132, 19134, 19140. If you overlap those maps, that's where the highest crime is on those tangled titles. That's why that University of Penn study came out at a pivotal time, because that's telling us that if one house, one row house, now I'm a block captain, and I know in Philadelphia that one house could change the whole condition and atmosphere of a block. They're saying, according to this study from the University of Penn, that if one house was able to be eligible to get those basic system repair grants, that, by the way, have no waiting list, that crime would drop down by 22%. So we're always talking about what we can do about crime. Well, one thing that can help crime is help people stay in their homes and stabilize their homes and make sure they're able to survive in those homes. Because a lot of times people abandon homes because they can't get home equity loans because they don't own the house. They can't do things with the house. If it's a fire, just a couple months ago, a young man thought he inherited his mother's house. He was the only child. He should have inherited the house, but it was still in her name. It caught on fire. Unfortunately, he died in the fire. The house is just sitting there and is a blighted mess on the block because we have not been into the habit of talking about making wills, and we think it's taboo. So we are connecting all the citizens of Philadelphia with all legal agencies. There are agencies out there that will help you make a will for free. Christian Legal Clinics does it. I think Drexel University. Karima will put that map up, all those numbers. We will make sure you get every number that we have for you all to help you all. A will is a gift that takes in effect after your death. So it's a gift. It helps minimize any family fight that may arise about your estate. So let me tell you, I serve as a judge. So I have to determine when there's no will. Now, when there's a will, it never even comes to the register. If that will was put together the correct way, which we give you best practices, then your family or your executor, whoever your name is, your executor, executrix, is in and out of our office given the short certificates, and they are sent to the recorder of deeds, to the banks, mortgage company, wherever the business that you need to be taken. When it's not a will, then I have to determine who is going to be the best person to represent your estate. And that person will be called an administrator. I have to make that. I have to determine that. And a lot of times it is between who they think the next of kin is, which the state of Pennsylvania already made a will for you, and it's called intestate. So that means husband, wife, children, parents. It goes down in those, in whatever the state or however the family dynamic is. So that's when the fight comes in, because hypothetically, if a granddaughter had been living with her grandmother all her life and she believed that that was her house, and everybody knew that the grandmother said that was her house. And I always use this as an example because a lot of times in real life, it actually happens. It's happened in my own personal family. And then the grandmother dies, and everybody knows that the granddaughter, she wanted the granddaughter to have the house, but she didn't need a will. So the grandmother has 5 kids. So that means the 5 kids come before the grandkids. That means that grandchild has to get all of them to sign and renunciations and to agree to give their share. Which means, well, you know what that means. How many of you all believe that that's going to be smooth? I've had police reports, drug rehab reports. I mean, it's this fighting. And I'm so happy at this time to serve as the Registrar of Wills. I have my sister solicitor and another solicitor. His name is Frank Capiz, and Karima is there consulting with me. And we're listening to the family. And guess what we're finding out? That they don't necessarily want to fight. They just don't understand the process. So luckily, I'm able sometimes to be able to talk to them so they can all come to some sort of happy medium. Or worst case scenario, I have to reassign that case to another attorney, and that's going to cost your estate more money when you could have wrote the will and determined how you wanted your assets to be distributed. And so it's really, I'm just so happy that I have a partnership with the Recorder of Deeds, because people, it's not easy to transfer a deed. It's very technical. And I'm going to throw the ball over because I will talk forever because this is like my passion. But I wanted to share my time with Recorder of Deeds so he can let them know how technical and tedious it is to transfer the deed without having, the support of the Recorder of Deeds, and sometimes, in most cases, a professional to help you with that. So, Jim, I don't know if you talked about that already, but I'd like to throw the ball in your court now.
No, I can thank you, Madam Registrar. I can talk a little bit about the way the recording process works. I mentioned everybody that our office is responsible for all the real estate records, the public record of all the real estate property records, mortgages, and deeds in the city. And in terms of tangled title, as the register said, you have to go to her office first. Now, we oftentimes, because people are understandably unfamiliar with and confused by, rightfully so, by both the probate process and the deed recording process. They're incredibly technical. They're esoteric. They're very legal in nature, and they are not intuitive to people's everyday lives. People get sort of thrown into the situation oftentimes when they least expect it, as we've talked about in terms of when there's crises, and they're sort of thrown into this unfamiliar world at the worst possible time. So folks, and we often have to direct people back to the registrar's office first, because they sometimes come to us and mistakenly believe they can maybe come down, and if grandmom told them, everybody for years, this is my grandson's property when I die, they sometimes, understandably show up at our office and say, this is the case and I need to get my name on to do that. And it's sort of only to find out that it's way more complicated. So the process starts in the registrar's office, and as we said, requires legal assistance to help folks navigate that. The last The final stop after the will's probated and assets are distributed and inheritance taxes filed and paid, when the assets are distributed and the family home is ready to be transferred from the administrator of the estate to the heir or heirs, that's when the deed is prepared, and then it's brought to our office and quote recorded. Like we said, that's also, it's not a very long document. Typically, they're only maybe 4 or 5 pages long, but they're very technical. We see folks, because they have, oftentimes they just don't have the means, or maybe haven't been directed to the appropriate available legal resources, who are trying to do this on their own. It's very dangerous to be trying to transfer title to your home as part of the estate process on your own. It's very easy to make a mistake, and something could get on record, and only for you to find out maybe years later, maybe soon, maybe not. It depends on when the next issue comes up, that it wasn't done properly, and there's still sort of more work to be done and to clean it up, when, again, folks can oftentimes least afford to be confronted with that. And so the Register's probate deferment initiative, which I'm going to defer to the Register and Karima to talk about, but that we partner with her on, is a way to incentivize people through deferral and waiving of fees in our respective offices, to encourage them to come in to the Register's office, start that probate process, and ultimately transfer their generational wealth by recording the deed in our office.
Yeah, and so it was so pivotal that once we explained or asked for his partnership, I was so happy, because that's 2 offices that my probate deferment initiative are going to work together for it to be easier for the lawyer that's going to be assigned to your case, for them to be able to streamline everything. And then at the end of that, we encourage the making of the will, so we can stop the disease of a tangled title. So I wanted Karima to tell you some, we had some good feel-good stories, and just tell you all a little bit about our probate deferment initiatives, the qualifications, and just some of the good news that we're doing, and some of the good works that she's doing as a partner.
Thank you, Madam Register. So Register Gordon started the probate deferment initiative last year in order to assist people with clearing up these tangled titles. She recognized that not everybody had $400 or $500 to come into our office and probate an estate when there's some type of an emergency. So that's what the probate deferment initiative does. What it does is, you come into our office, or you call our office seeking help, and we connect you with legal resources that will assist you. It'll be an attorney who will assist you with your case, because a lot of times the tangled title cases are very complicated, and we don't recommend that you try to do them yourself, because especially if it requires to open up multiple estates. We have situations where people call and they say the house is in the name of my great aunt, and the great aunt died in 1959. And the house is still in her name. I mean, there's a lot of things you got to do to untangle that. So that's why we suggest that you come to us, so that we can connect you with the legal resources. And so once we connect you with them, they will send the application to our office for the PDI program, which, if it's granted, is income-based, but we trying to be as inclusive as possible. And if it's granted, then our office will defer the probate fees. It's deferred, it becomes a lien against the property, but it will not become due until the property is sold. Or you could come into our office and pay it off when you get the money. We're not seeking to take anyone to share sale. We genuinely just want people to have the property in the proper name, so that they can access what they need to access. And then Once that happens, we'll give you a certificate that allows you, the legal services organization will draw up a new deed to the property in the name of the heirs. And then we'll give you a certificate that you'll take that new deed to the to Commissioner Leonard's office, and you will record that deed, and he will waive the fee at his office. That fee is about $275. So when you go there, they'll waive the fee, you'll get your deed recorded, and the property will be in your name. And then once that's done, the legal organization will assist you with writing a will so we can stop the cycle. Because we have to stop the cycle. We have to have wills. We have to make our own arrangements so that we can take care of what we need to take care of for ourselves. So if you want help with PDI, or if you need assistance, you don't know, just call us. Our number is 215-686-6320, or you can send an email to row.pdi@phila.gov. And we'll get back to you. We'll try to assist you in any way we can.
Yes, and let's give them one feel-good story. How about the
So
how about
yes.
how about the family that had the will and didn't?
So
Tell us
yes,
about that one.
someone contacted us because the house was in their deceased mother's name, and they had a will, but they just didn't know what to do. So they had just been living there. And so when they heard about the PDI program, they came to us. We connected them with the legal services. They got their new deed set up. They got their fees deferred, and now their house is in their name. I mean, and then they came up to Register Gordon at an event and thanked her so much for this program, because honestly, if they hadn't heard of it, their house would still be in the deceased person's name because they just did not know what to do.
And listen, how they even just got the idea about the will and estate planning is they went to the local council person's office and they would qualify for the basic system repair grant, and they had needed some work on the house. And so they get to the basic system repair department, and of course the questionnaire, do you own a home? Yes. Okay, such and such. So then they would say, okay, show proof, so you had to show, your deed or whatever. And so when they showed the deed, it had the mother name on it. It was like, well, whose name is this? I said, well, my mother's name. She left me the house. And it was like, did you probate the estate? And they was like, pro what? Because they didn't know what probate meant. And so they didn't qualify. So luckily, the councilwoman heard of the program and referred them over there. And then we were able to assist. Now that was an easy one because nobody contested the will. It was I think it was 3 sisters or 2 sisters, and they had their homes, and it was just, they filed it, and we've helped, because when you look at it like this, you say 10,000 tangled titles, but let's be human about this. That's not titles or houses. Those are 10,000 families. And now the way prices is and jobs and COVID, sometimes there are 2 and 3 generations in a house. And that one row home that at one point everybody thought that Philly wasn't, nobody wanted to live in Philly. Do you know that Philadelphia has the hottest real estate on the East Coast? Not the state, the East Coast, the entire East Coast. And that's where people are coming and developers. And I don't know if Jim had told you about the program that he started with the fraud guard, because a lot of people, because they didn't have the will, because a will is a way to protect your generational wealth. Some people were coming and stealing people's properties. And then you come back and look, and it's like a 3-story house on your mother's property, like whatever happened. So he established a program called Fraud Guard. And Jim, tell them how they can qualify for the Fraud Guard, because I definitely signed up for it. For my little one home, I need to know if somebody's tampering with my title, that they would contact me. Jim?
Yeah. Thank you, Register. So deed fraud is just a terrible crime, where a thief steals your family home. We know by forging very frequently a deceased owner's name. And we have been keeping data on this for approximately the last 8 years. And we've been participating longer than that in a variety of stakeholder groups with the Philadelphia Bar Association and what's called the Deed Fraud Task Force. We know that there was a spike in fraud report cases to our office, deed fraud report cases in 2018. It was about a 60 or 70% increase from the year before. And that amounted to about 130, just under 140 reports. Now, we record about 50 to 60,000 deeds a year. So, to say we get 140 reports of deed fraud a year might in some way sound sort of like small, but I don't ever talk about it that way, because just like the register says with tangled titles, every one of these reports represents the loss of a family home that may have been with the family for generations. So it really is just a terrible crime that inflicts people throughout our city. And I don't have the map with me, but we similarly to what the Register and Pew has done, we map our, this is in collaboration with law enforcement, which is why I usually don't display it publicly, but we know where we've mapped where over the last 10 years these reports have been made. And we know that, not unlike what the Register said when she showed the map, we know that there's a concentration of these reports or the deed fraud occurring in areas of North Philadelphia, neighborhoods in North Philadelphia, like and Gray's Ferry and other areas of West Philadelphia, and really areas that are, look, this is a crime of opportunity. So the thieves they're very smart. They often, we think with the DA as well as us, they operate in rings. They're not just stealing one property, they're out to peel off as many as they can, flip them to maybe unscrupulous developers or folks who are willing to look the other way for cash, and they disappear with the money, never to be heard of again. And we know that, that occurs in hot gentrifying areas where folks are, they figure out there's these vacant houses oftentimes with deceased relatives, they scope them out and they steal them. And it's very hard to detect. You're presented our team, who's very sophisticated, our team who reviews deeds, but you're presented with a document that is all forged. The signature's forged by the real owner, and every deed is notarized. And oftentimes, although there can be a notary that's participating in the crime, more often than not, the notary's identity, a real notary's identity, has been stolen also. So we created a few years ago a tool called Fraud Guard that is free and that anybody can go on our website, and we can put the link in the chat, and register for. All you have to do is put in your first and last name, and anytime a deed's recorded in our office, you will get an email alert with a link in the email to the document that you can click on and look at no cost to see if you believe that a fraud may have occurred. And you can even monitor our loved one's property. So if you want to, if your mom or dad, if mom's in assisted living or in a nursing home and the house is vacant and you don't get to go there that often, although we encourage folks to, as a way to prevent deed fraud, to visit the home at least as frequently as they can. But you can monitor, by entering your mom's name. And with that email, that shrinks the time. The idea is to shrink the time. If a fraud occurs, to shrink the time between where the fraud occurs and where it's discovered. Because we've seen, as Register alluded to this, situations where years can go by because an heir or a relative or a daughter or son, grandchildren maybe don't live in the area. the house remains vacant for a long time. And one of the worst ones that we've seen was, mom, dad died, house is vacant. Daughter is essentially the owner, but the tangled title, it's not in her name. Somebody steals the property. Daughter, maybe 2-3 years later, visits the property, and lo and behold, it's a brand new constructed property, and there's a couple living in it. And only to discover that, 2 or 3 years before, it had been stolen, flipped to somebody, a developer probably, who may or may not have been involved in the crime, who renovated it and paid cash, then renovated it and paid, and then sold it to, what ultimately is an unsuspecting, unknowing couple. Everybody ends up in a lawsuit that goes on for years. It's one big mess. This was handled by Philly VIP, one of our local legal services organizations that both of our offices partner with. And, at the end of the day, it was worked out. And I think, I think what happened is the folks who were in the property ended up essentially paying a settlement to the daughter, but everybody loses. Everybody's a victim. The crook is gone. The money's gone. The home is gone because the daughter couldn't afford to essentially buy back what was a new constructed home that had now a higher value and was lived in by an innocent party. So the court has this huge mess to sort of sort out. And at the end of the day, there's not like what I would call justice. I mean, there's a resolution. Ultimately, the court and the parties come to some sort of resolution, but the family lost their home and all that, their history that they had with it. And, tools like Fraud Guard are one way that we're trying to give folks assistance in helping to prevent this, along with a lot of cooperation with law enforcement. And you may have seen in the media over the past year or two, a variety, numerous prosecutions of multiple rings of people who are stealing, 9, 10, 12 properties. So I would encourage anybody, we'll put the link in the chat, and encourage everybody to sign up for it or to spread the word. And we now have just so everybody knows, I'll stop talking, is we have for the first time ever, we've just started a citywide public outreach media campaign to educate the public on deed fraud, because like the register said with tangled title, there's a lack of education on this issue. And I think, we as the city and my office haven't done as good of a job as I think we could have over the years. So we're now appearing at lots of community events, hopefully up to 100 over the next 3 to 4 months in the nice weather. So look out for us if you're at community events hosted by elected officials or other nonprofits. We're typically now out at those at a table with materials and iPads to sign folks up.
Yeah, and I just wanted to let you all know, look in your water bill, because we sent to about 300,000 homes. You're going to see the insert is in English and Spanish, by the way. And it's asking you, is your home in the name of a deceased person? And we have it equipped with the QR codes that you can just take your phone and shine it over the QR codes, and you can come to either one of our offices, and we explain to you about the tangled titles and the process and how you can make the appointments. And that's this was just wonderful when Commissioner Leonard told me that this was approved to go out to the city of Philadelphia citizens. That said, I'm keeping my promise. I have always understood home ownership. It was embedded in me from my great grandmother. I remember she was one of the first people to get a mortgage with it used to be called PSFS. And I've always known about, I mean, this is as a kid, that I knew the difference between owning and renting. And now, you know, as I'm older, I just didn't understand where we went wrong with understanding the protection of our assets. And that's why I started the series, Plan, Prepare, Protect. Plan your estate to prepare your heirs so you can protect your property. And I want you all to know that we will come to the church, we will come to the schools, we will come to your block parties, we will come back to the National Coalition of 100 Women. We want to partner with you all because we know you are all educated and active. We need to get this message out because time is not on your side. Because every time somebody dies within that line, that's another estate that has to be open. And I always tell people, and I'll close with this if you have any questions, the affordable house is the one that your family owns. And I'll repeat that. The affordable house is the one that you already own. And thank God that the district attorney is now prosecuting if you still won, because at one point it was like you had to sell 5 houses. How many of us have 5 houses? We have our 1 row house. How many of us have money in the bank sitting there that if something happens, like somebody steals our deed, you have to get an attorney for that. Like, you don't know how to undo it. And they just put close to $100,000 is supposed to be earmarked to the basic system repair program, which I'm told there is not even a waiting list. But the people that are in the tangle titles don't qualify for it because of a technicality that they didn't understand the process of probate. And so my office is open for you all. We're in room 180 for probate, or we also are a collection agency for the state. So that's where you would pay your inheritance taxes at our office. Last year, we sent $90.5 million to the state of city of Harrisburg, or the state of Pennsylvania, in inheritance taxes. Our office, the Register of Wills, County of Philadelphia, is considered a first-class city. We send the most money to the state in inheritance taxes. Every year, we send between $80 to $100 million to Harrisburg. And so I just want to let you all know that if you own a home, if you have an asset, if you have minor children, if you have disabled children, please, 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 please consult with an attorney, preferably an estate attorney, and build that will and get that will and put it in a safe place, because we don't see it until after you die. Make a copy, make sure somebody knows where that will is, make sure you name who that executor or executrix is, let them know where it is, and so you can protect and pass down your generation wealth. I am so happy to come to speak with you. I like to do it in person. Me and Jim, we're starting to come out more with the COVID. And our phone number is 215-686-6250. It will give you a memo, and it even has a number that will take you directly to the Recorder Deeds office. If you have any legal questions, and Karima will put this in the chat, roll online at phila.gov. If you go on and email us that, we have like a 24-hour turnaround. We will answer any legal questions that you have as it pertains to, our office, and just basic practices that you should do. I just want you all to know that, you don't make wills when you get old. You make them when you get the asset.
Madam Register,
Yes.
there was a question in the chat, and you just said it, but I would like for you to address it again.
Okay.
Multiple people have asked if they can register their wills at our office.
Yes. So in the state of Pennsylvania, we do not register wills. In the state of Maryland, you do register wills. I learned in Atlanta. In the state of Georgia, there is a way you can register your will, and there's a fee. And we are looking into it. But currently, we don't see the will until after you die. So we always say best practice is if you leave it with your attorney, or a lockbox. And I'm talking about the ones that is both fireproof and waterproof, because you never know. And you let someone know where your will is. You name the executor and executrix, male or female, let them know, because hey, they might be saying, I've had, people that didn't know that they was going to be, the executor, and they was, they're slapped with all this responsibility that they didn't know about. So, be very thoughtful about it, and definitely thoughtful about if something should happen to you, who you would want to take the custody over your children's and protect their assets until they get of the age. You may want to even put a clause in there, because we know how 18-year-olds, the first thing they're going to do is go buy some jewelry or a car or something. Maybe you might want them to inherit it when they turn 25. You can make the will. It's custom make. You can make it the way you want. And people always ask me, well, what about the wills that you can get at, online? I wouldn't recommend that, because you're not an attorney, and everybody's situation is different. And I think that best practice that I would say and recommend, I would rather to sit down with an attorney so they know, because you may have been married before, you may have stepchildren, you may have an ex-wife, you may have, everybody has a different, so it's not cookie cutter. You should sit with an attorney, and you say, well, I only have one house and one child. Okay. Well, wouldn't you just want it to be easier for your child to be able to say, oh, I know where mom will live, and I have to go to room 180. I'll call, I'll get an appointment. Here's this, and everything is done for your child, as opposed to, they're grieving you already, it's a legal, it's some legal technicalities that you need to do. But when you leave a will, they just come to the office and we show them everything. When you don't leave a will, we still going to show them everything, but it may be a different dynamic, because then if you intended for your daughter to get it and you didn't make the will and you got 4 of her kids, then your daughter is going to have to get renunciations and get them to agree that she gets what you want her to get. And so I just want you all to just let everyone know about our office, and please go online, #PHLROW, and you'll see we do skits, because sometimes people don't even want to talk about it. Like, you talk to your mom, your grandma, they start looking at you like, what you trying, what you plotting and planning? Just slip the laptop in front of her and let her see one of our register reacts little videos, because they're funny, but at the same time, when I'm telling these stories I was in an audience with seniors the other day, and they all ran up to me saying, I have to get a will, because, people do not want to talk about, it's a very sensitive topic, but we need to start minding our business. We need to start being more business-like about our assets. Anything you want to close with, James? Did I leave anything out, Commissioner Leonard?
You covered everything.
And
The only thing I would say, I try to remember to say is that, too, is that for most people, the will that you'll create with an attorney is relatively simple. I mean, it's probably going to be a few pages long. It's not, it is an intimidating topic, and it's hard to talk about, but it ends up being relatively, with the right help, simple and straightforward. And I always try to mention the statistics, which I'm amazed by, which is over the next 25 years, it's estimated that $68 trillion with a T dollars in generational wealth will be transferred.
$68 trillion is going to transfer from baby boomers down to, your kids, or, however old you are, and my age group need to, start, making sure that we get our business together to make the will. And then the younger generation, like I'm sure some of your members are, need to understand that, hey, I just bought a house, I just got married, I just got divorced, I just had another baby. And these are anytime there's a change, anytime there's a change in your life, somebody dies, somebody gets married, somebody is born, that's when you start updating your will. And it is very easy. And people will say, is it expensive? Red bottoms are expensive. Red bottom shoes are expensive, but I rather spend that money or talk to an attorney and ask them, can I pay it over 2 or 3 increments? Karima, what is the average price for a basic will? I mean, I know it's different depending on how many assets you have and how much work goes into the will, but what is like a price range? Do you know?
So, I mean, you could get a simple will for like $400. You could also get a free one if you're eligible for some of these services that are out here. So, I mean, you have to just seek out what you need. Like if you can't afford that, you call our office. We'll refer you to some places that will do it for free if you're unable to afford it. But generally, depending on your assets, the base is about $400.
I mean, the shows to some of these shows is $400 now. So you don't want your family fighting, and that's what I do. And when I'm listening to these citations and I'm hearing the hurt, and what I try to do is to at least get the family at least talk to each other, because I'm finding that they're not really fighting and hating each other. They just don't understand. They just don't understand the process. They don't understand that the administrator doesn't necessarily, they think the administrator could take and give, her this, her that. It has to be equal. And the administrator is just the one that's overseeing the process. They may not even be part of the beneficiary. So education is key. And so we're trying to get lawmakers to, incorporate it in our schools. And that's where you all come in to help. When they come and ask for our vote, when we should have those type of curriculums, because when I purchased my home, of course, the mortgage company was like, you have to get the HOA plan to protect you, the homeowner's insurance. And then the broker who sold me the home said, hey, I see you have a couple kids. Do you have a life insurance policy just in case something happened to you? Because at the time it was not GoFundMe, but GoFundMe is not insurance. And then no one ever said to me, hey, do you have a will? Because you're getting ready to buy an asset. You have minor children. No one told me that. And I went to college and I graduated from Fox School of Business and risk management and insurance. And not nowhere near in that curriculum did it say anything about a will. Making a will. What is a will? What's the register of will? What is probate? What happens? If something happened to you, how do you transfer how do your kids get this property? How do they go to the mortgage company and negotiate with the mortgage? I just talked to somebody today. Their mother died of COVID. They're still sending a mortgage, and the mortgage company is still certainly cashing those money orders, but they don't own the property because the property is in the name of the dead person. So they didn't know that they had to come down and probate so they can get the short certificate. So then they can go to the mortgage company, and because the mortgage company is not even going to talk to you if you're not the owner. So we can actually go on and on and on and on. I like to tell these stories. I'm not trying to scare you all. I'm just saying that for every day that house is staying in a dead person name is the time is not on your side. I'd like to thank you all for inviting me. Thank you, Karima. Thank you to my colleague. You know how city government is, and I was new. I'm new to holding an elected office like this, and just to be able to have a partnership with an office that people think are one and the same is a blessing. And I want to publicly thank Commissioner Jim Leonard, because when we told him about our probate deferment initiative, he was like, yes, let's partner. And we have introduced this program to council. We have budgeted this program, and we are, that is just my mission again, educate people about the register of wills in its office, assist in this tangle title epidemic here in the city of Philadelphia, and continue to make sure that the office looks like Philadelphia. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Believe there were 2 questions in the Q&A. I didn't know if you wanted to address those.
Okay.
Or if they were
So I
already
addressed them.
answered.
I addressed them.
You
Okay,
did? Read them. What were they, Kareem?
So there were more than 2 questions,
Okay.
but the ones that I have addressed are whether our office assists with writing wills, and I told them that we will refer them to people that would assist with that.
Yep.
We already did the cost to register. I mean, whether we register wills at our office, whether we
Okay.
keep them prior to death.
Oh, no.
Someone had a question about because they must have probated an estate but never recorded a deed
Okay.
because of fees, and so they wanted more information about what they could do now. But I would need more information to answer that question.
So roll online or you roll online at phila.gov and send the question to us, and
Yes.
and everything, and we'll make sure that we'll coordinate with Commissioner Leonard, and we will assist you.
There was a question about automatic transfer if the property is left to someone in a will. Madam Register, you always say there's no such thing as an automatic transfer. And I told them that the estate must still be probated and they should contact our office if they have questions about that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you have a will, fine, but you have to probate the will. There's no such thing as an automatic transfer. There is a legal process. And you can do it pro se too. Pro se meaning you don't have to have an attorney come in. If you had a will, we will assist you. If you don't have a will, if you qualify for a program, we will give you legal assistance. If you don't qualify, meaning you have enough money to hire attorney if you have to, because we may be able to assist you, but it may be like 3 or 4 states. But just send it to us, and we will definitely be able to assist you with understanding the process and referring you to attorneys.
And so I just want to clarify that, Madam Register, because there was another question in the chat about whether our office assists or should people hire an attorney. And I said that our office cannot actively assist them with the probate process, but we can assess your documents, make sure that you have the proper paperwork. And if you do, and you're able to probate the estate yourself, we will assist you with that.
Right.
We will not find your paperwork. We will not get your renunciation signed. You need to get an attorney's assistance for those type of things. So I just want to clarify that.
Yes.
We will assist you though, if you come in with all the proper paperwork. There was a question about what happens when someone dies and they don't have any heirs. So what happens when someone dies and they don't have any heirs? The state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is the heir, is the last resort heir. So everything escheats to the state if you don't have anyone to survive you on your bloodline. So sometimes what we see is someone either was living in the property as a tenant or they have some other interest in the property being fixed up, and they seek to gain ownership of that property. And that does not come through the Register of Wills office per se. It could if an estate is required to be open, but that's more of an orphans court issue. And we would suggest that you contact an attorney to discuss if you have those type of issues. And Commissioner Leonard, I put the link for Fraud Guard in the chat, but one of the questions that do you know of deed fraud occurring where the owner is still alive or someone's living in the home? Do you know of any instances like that?
We have seen it. It's much less common. And I think that's probably because a thief is looking for the easiest way to get the property and then sell it for cash. So someone being in it is just sort of an impediment to that easiest, they take the path of least resistance. So we have seen it just doesn't happen as often. That's why we tell folks that if they, I mean, look, everybody who owns a home should sign up for a fraud guard. I mean, that's what we encourage people to do. But it's much more likely that it can happen if a home is vacant. So if you have a home in your family that is vacant, whether it's a parent or grandparent's home or what have you, even before, one of the best things you can do, and I mentioned this just briefly, but I'll say it again, is not just probate and do the estate, which is the real long-term legal fix, but go to the property, visit it once a week, pick up the mail, make people aware that somebody is going in and out of the house, because these thieves watch vacant homes, or people tip them off to what homes have been sitting vacant for a while. And, oftentimes with just watching the mail too, you will see if something has happened, like a change of ownership, like a deed fraud, you'll start to see in mailings, like from the city, for example, like a water bill, all of a sudden it'll be in a different name, or an electric bill, or any kind of sort of like utilities and things like that. So being vigilant in that way, to the extent you can, if you're close, if you're nearby-ish, is another way that it's really can help deter folks.
And one more question, Commissioner Leonard, it says, can you have fraud guard on more than one property in your name?
I'm sorry?
Can you have fraud guard on more than one property in your name?
Yes.
I told them in the chat that it goes by address. So you just type in the address and you get notification.
Actually, it doesn't go by address. It goes
Oh.
it's just by name. But addresses are sort of, without getting too deep into it, I mean, they're not as reliable as a way to sort of track things. It's not a requirement, for example, that your address is included in your deed. Most people would be sort of surprised to know that. I mean, only thing that matters is sort of the sort of technical measurements of your property. That's really what has to go into a deed. Now, most deeds have an address, and we track it by that. But in terms of fraud guard, you just enter in a name, first and last name, and anything that is recorded with that name on it, you'll get an email notice about. Now, if you have a common name, you can get, you might get more frequent notices, but you can always click on it and then look at it and see, like, oh, that's not it's actually not my property.
Okay. Interesting. I'm glad we know that now.
So you get notice if your name is used, or
If it appears, so if I'm registered, so James Leonard, so if my name, first and last name, appear in a document that's recorded in our office, I get an email. So I actually get a lot of them.
Oh, because your name is.
Because I have to sign deeds as part of court orders that we receive in deed fraud cases or other tangled title cases. So I get usually a few a month. The first time I got one, I almost had a heart attack. I mean, it's not like, these are not fun notices to
Right.
get. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? But it was, I had signed a deed as in my official role, and that's, so I'm.
Okay. I
So
got you.
anytime my name comes up in a document, I get an email.
But look, I don't care. If something, Tracy Gordon, send me the note.
It's better to know, because you just click on it. You
Right,
click on the link.
Michelle, my one now, send me I'll determine, because my neighbor came around to me the other day, and he said, what's this? And he was notified. So, sign up for fraud guard, guys.
But we also send out letters too. We've been doing that for
Yeah.
probably 12 years, but fraud guard is quicker.
Yes, quick.
if you have access to email.
Yes, the email. Wow, this was fun. Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Honorable Tracy Gordon, Ms. Yelverton, who I know personally. So it's great to see you.
You
And
too.
Mr. Leonard, thank you so much for this wealth of information. It was a pleasure to have you back because last year, when we started the series, this is our second year that we had you for our estate planning series. So we're glad to have you again. And we will
SisterNomics.
definitely,
I
yes,
like
SisterNomics,
this.
estate planning, yes.
Yes,
So,
SisterNomics. I love it.
yes.
I love it.
Yes, so thank you so much for the wealth of information. And everyone will receive, please complete the post-evaluation survey, which will be, the link will be presented or will be shown at the end of the program. And
Okay.
everyone, the attendees will receive a copy of an estate planning booklet, compliments of Senator Vincent Hughes in our thank you email.
I want one. Send me
Oh.
mine. I like to look at all these
Okay.
booklets. Thank you.
Okay, sure, not a problem. So thank you again. Like I said, the next steps, please complete the post-evaluation survey. Once you close the webinar, the survey will be shown, so you can complete that.
Okay.
Leverage the information learned today. Please do share the information with your networks. You will receive a recording of the presentation at the close or towards that after everyone everyone will receive a copy of the program in your email, your thank you email that will be sent out shortly. So again, thank you very much for attending the program. Also, please feel free to follow the National Coalition 100 Black Women Pennsylvania chapter on our social media platforms. Thank you very much again, and everyone have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.